and welcome to People in Power. I'm Juliana Ruhfus. When Sri Lanka's Tamil tigers were driven out of the country's east earlier this year, the government declared it had won the war in the region and liberated it from rebel forces. This had been the heaviest fighting in years, and soon after, government soldiers began a hearts and minds campaign, distributing food and resettling refugees. But months of fighting are not that easily forgotten. Many of those displaced by the conflict are still stuck in camps. Tamil Tiger rebels have reverted back to guerrilla tactics, and other armed groups see a potential power vacuum in which they can flourish. I visited the region soon after the fighting to ask how the East was won and who paid the price. Eastern Sri Lanka. The 24-year-old war between the government and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, the LTTE, has recently entered a new phase. In the last year, the Sri Lankan army has more or less driven the tigers out of this area.
The magazine also, this is used by the LTT.
Is that a LTT uniform on the fence?
Yes.
How has this camp been cleared? What happened here?
That means the army has come and captured this Swarnan base.
Was it shooting or shelling or what happened?
Yes, shooting and in addition to that, airstrike.
And you can still see all the personal items,
Yes,
toothbrush,
yes, you can see.
toothpaste, somebody's shampoo.
Yes.
Since the early 1990s, the LTTE have been in control of chunks of eastern Sri Lanka as well as the north of the country. Around 70,000 people have died in their war for Tamil independence from Sri Lanka's Sinhalese majority. What are these pictures?
The LTT cards.
Are these the pictures of fighters who've been killed?
This is all martyrs today.
Looks like somebody shot bullets into the faces. Last year, the new Sri Lankan president, Mahinda Rajapaksa, gave up on stalled peace talks and on a persistently violated ceasefire. Once more, the government resorted to a military solution, and the army had the kind of success against the tigers it hadn't seen in years.
Now, the eastern province, about 95%, the land is under the government control, security forces. But not that. 178,000 civilians, those who are under the LTT for the last 15 years, now they are with the government.
Yet the fallout from the army's operations in the east have been immense. 140,000 refugees, mainly Tamil, have fled the fighting. Most have ended up in the Pt1 region, and today sees the beginning of a well-publicized plan to resettle 90,000 of them. It is the centerpiece of the government's campaign to win Tamil hearts and minds and to return the region to normality. How many people are being resettled today?
Today, I think 3,000 people are resettled. From today, we are starting. Before 24th of this month, we can resettle to 38,000 people.
Now you can see, now you can get a picture of it, and now see they are distributing soft drinks. That's a very good thing. This is army's humanitarian activities.
One of the families being resettled today are the Saskirans. Are these the things that you managed to leave with? All of this is for 5 people? All returnees are being registered and photographed by the government. There are fears that this is being used to keep a tab on the Tamil population. Why are you deciding to move back to your village? Did the government ask you to move back, or do you want to go back? Those being resettled today live only a short drive from Pt1. Yet the provisions promised at the end of the journey seem to be in short supply. A panicked scrabble for food breaks out. Mr. Saskiran manages to grab a bag of rice before he and his family finally head off to see what's happened to their home. Yet this is an area which saw relatively little fighting. We want to find out how returnees are coping where the conflict was heaviest. In Varkarai, journalists are only allowed to visit under army supervision. We've just crossed into what used to be LTTE territory. This is the area that's been most heavily affected by the fighting. Most of the land around here is still heavily landmined, and it's difficult for civilians to return. Colonel Anura Sudasinghe wants to show us how the army is trying to win the hearts and minds of Tamils who were under LTTE rule for 15 years. It seems it's not the first time they've brought this old woman to meet the press.
This mother, even the fighting, she has been here. You see?
Oh, she was in the newspaper?
Yeah.
We helped
Where did you stay? In that place? Are things better now? The army says it's trying to turn the area into a model of redevelopment. They want to persuade the returning Tamils that life will be better than it was under the Tigers.
This is stuff we are going to give now. Is electricity, this area. So before we liberated, we didn't have proper electricity. No electricity at all. Only the land and all that. Now after liberation, within 2 months, now everything is coming up now.
And you're hoping that the development of this area could bring lasting peace?
Definitely.
Colonel Sudasinghe claims the army tried to keep civilian casualties to a minimum.
We are so worried about the civilian casualties. That is why we took so much time. Here we took about 2.5 months to liberate this area. Not because of that we cannot do it in 1 week or 2. So we just started, shelling, you can do that. But what happened? Ultimately, the poor civilians will die invainly.
Yet shells were dropping on civilians in Bakurai, as these pictures from Tamil television networks show. And just moments after our military escort has left us to return home, we see resettled Tamils queuing for food rations. How bad was the fighting here? I mean, these people have told us constantly they've treated the civilians so nice. How bad was the fighting?
Very difficult. Not
Five months of shelling, bombing. Did many people die? What convinced you to come back here? Do you think now there will be peace? Do you think this is the end of the fighting? These Tamils have had the chance to return home. In the camps of Batikaloa, many refugees still wait in limbo. Some of them have fled fighting from location after location, 6 or even 7 times.
சுட்டோடனே திரும்ப நாங்க காட்டுல ஓடி போய் கிடக்குறோம் ஒரு ஊரா கிடந்து நாங்க இந்த தடவை அடியோட வீட புல்ரோசர் கொண்டு தள்ளியாச்சு இப்போ இருக்கிறது எங்களுக்கு ஊரா கூடி இல்லன்றாங்க.
The government is saying that they fought a war to liberate people like you, to liberate people in LTT territories. Did you want that war to be fought for you?
எங்களுக்கு அப்படி தேவைப்படல. எங்களுக்கு இப்ப நாங்க அரசாங்கம் மீட்டதுல எங்களுக்கு இழப்புகள் தான் அதிகம். தமிழர் முத்தாக நாங்க புலி இல்லை. அரசாங்கம் என்ன செய்து போராக்கள் இருக்கிறாங்கள விடுதலை புலிகள் அடிக்கிறாண்டு நாங்க தங்கி இருக்கிற முகாங்களுக்கு தான் கொண்டு போட்டோம். விடுதலை புலிகள் அடிக்கிறாண்டு அழியுங்க. எங்கடக்க அடிச்சு திறத்தரையில் எங்கட ஊரை விட்டு ஏன் திறத்தரை.
The government may have won territory in the east, but it still has a long way to go before it starts to win hearts and minds. At the same time, the LTTE are reverting back to the low-intensity warfare which made them famous. In the last year, there have been 49 suicide attacks, one of them on the Chenkaladi army base this March. a tiger drove a tractor full of explosives into the base, killing 3 soldiers and 5 civilians. So they just broke through the barriers, is that how they got in?
They have broken the barriers and they have fired at the same place. Due to that fire, he was unable to reach up to his target. Has exploded here.
It must have been a huge explosion. If it happened over here, 3 people died, 3 soldiers died over here. It affected the political party office over there.
You can see that houses, the roof of the houses. It was a very powerful explosion.
The violence continues, and as if the tigers and the army weren't enough, the East is now faced with the emergence of a third armed group.